And there's this, I think, overwhelming feeling of like you must be selfish if you're doing something for yourself. But what I've really learned, and this is something that I preach a lot at this point, is self-care and self-love is not selfish. It's actually the opposite. And it was something that took me a very long time to learn.
Welcome to the Women Inspired podcast, where together we explore ways to live our most joyful, aligned, vibrant lives. On this podcast, we draw inspiration from the lessons embedded in other women's stories, and we use them to catalyze our own growth and success. And we explore concepts and techniques from the fields of psychology and design thinking that can help us thrive and make the most of the one and only life we're ever going to have. My name is April Seifert. I'm a psychologist, an entrepreneur, and a self-proclaimed life experience junkie, and I'm your host and friend along this journey. This podcast is supported by Modern Well, a woman-centered co-opportunity workspace in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Friend, it is time to start living vibrantly, by design, and with intention. Here we go. What's up, friends? Welcome back to the Women Inspired podcast. My name is April Seifert, and I'm your host. And if you are new to the podcast, let me say welcome. I'm so excited that you're here. You have no idea how pumped I am about this growing community of incredible people who are taking the time out of their schedules to figure out how to live their biggest, boldest, most aligned, vibrant lives. You will soon learn, if you're new to this podcast, that I'm incredibly passionate about helping people live as vibrantly as they possibly can, because ultimately we're only going to get one shot here. We're only going to get one life. And it is critically important that we do everything that we can to make that experience as incredible as we possibly can. So if you're new here and if you're returning here, thank you so much, seriously, for tuning in to this week's podcast. I am absolutely thrilled that you're joining me. This week, we are meeting an incredible woman named Lisa Hyde. Lisa has had quite the winding journey, and she's really open and honest with her experience in the past. She, spent 12 years in LA as a talent agent. She was in the entertainment industry and doing extremely well. But ultimately, life took a turn, and she found herself in a really heavy caretaking role twice, once for her grandmother and once for her mother. And if you've ever been in a caretaking role like that, or even if you've ever been a parent and you've had to take care of young kids, you know what a toll that relationship can take on you. Even if you're so, parenting and being a mom is one of the things that I would say is one of the brightest lights in my life. It's one of the things that I am most excited about and happiest to do, but it also takes a toll and requires some sacrifice, which means it requires us to put ourselves in the position to do it as well as we possibly can. And this conversation was just such a neat one around some of the major pillars and the major building blocks of setting yourself up for success on a day-to-day basis. We're talking about some basic things in this podcast. We're talking about sleep. We're talking about eating well. We're talking about moving your body. We're talking about taking some time in the morning to help you get to the position where you're not starting the day on the defense, where you really have your feet under you before your day takes off. We're really talking about that foundational stuff today. And Lisa is just a really great example of someone who lives this every day and who works hard to set herself up for success. Lisa's also the author of the book Be Stronger, and that's #strong HER, super cool title. And she is someone who is helping women step into entrepreneurship and build their own businesses. As I mentioned, she used to be in the entertainment industry. She was a talent agent for a long time. And now she's an entrepreneur working out of her home and helping other people build their businesses as well. She has such a wealth of knowledge to share with us on confidence and also on, as I mentioned, the pillars that set you up for success in your day-to-day life. So I'm absolutely thrilled for you all to meet Lisa Hyde in this episode. All right, let's listen to that conversation. Lisa, I'm so excited to have you here for this episode. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, April. I am thrilled.
Well, you have a very multi-dimensional background and a lot of expertise to share with us today. And what I think is cool about what we'll likely talk about is so many of the things that you focus on are really pillars that ultimately help people live at their best, like do their best, show up their best, and just be the best version of themselves that they can be through these things that that we'll talk about, ways that support people being their best throughout the day. So I'm really excited for this interview because I think it's going to be very tactical and really motivating. So I'm super excited.
Oh, great. I am thrilled. This is going to be fun.
So help us get to know you. Tell us a little bit about you, a little bit about how you came to be doing the work that you're doing today, and then we're going to dive into all the good stuff.
Awesome. Well, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I actually grew up in Los Angeles, where I live now, in the entertainment industry, and spent 12 years as a talent agent and manager. And that would have been my career for life. I was really focused, thought that was going to be it. But my mom became ill. I became her caregiver, and I closed my management company to take care of her. And that was one of those first crossroads that I hit where I had to oh my gosh, I'm going to have to rethink what it is that I thought my career was going to be. And I had this kind of gray period where I managed retail stores. So I could kind of get my footing, but there was no passion or heart in it. It was just a way that I had paid my way through college, something I was very familiar with, but no love. And I then looked again, like, I've been out of entertainment too long. I can't go back. I'm creeping up there in the years. What am I going to do in this next phase of my life? And it was suggested to go back to school. And I was like, well, okay. And this is 2008 when the market was pretty difficult to find sustainable work. And so I went into healthcare, and I was in a 2-year training program. And we were just at the tail end of the program when, wow, that was awful, when I became a caregiver for the second time. And it was a big, big realization that healthcare was also not going to be my my new home. And I let a complete stranger on a complete stranger on LinkedIn approached me and suggested that I try a home business. Now, I got to tell you, I was fried. I was in school full time. I was taking care of my grandmother full time. And I was not happy in any aspect of my life. And I didn't want this job I was training for. And I listened to her, and I was like, I don't want another sales job. I don't want to, this is all crazy. Why are you talking to me? She's like, well, you can do it as a hobby. And I say this, and I lead up to all of this because I was not looking for this. I've always enjoyed working for myself. I've always enjoyed being a boss, but I had no idea that a home business could actually turn out to be a career. And that was 8 years ago. So I'm here now because of that odd interaction where I thought she was crazy, didn't really believe she could possibly make ends meet, but I knew I needed a hobby to get out of the rut that I was in. And I took a giant leap of faith. I just decided that if I was going to do things for me that were going to make me happy, I was going to have to be in control of my schedule. So I'm sorry, that's the long and short of it, but that's really how I got here.
Amazing. So yeah, something that I want to dive into just a little bit, and we didn't really talk about this before we hopped on to record, but I would be missing an opportunity if I didn't dive in here a little bit. You mentioned being a caretaker. So many times when we're in a situation or when we see people in a situation where they're taking care of a loved one or a close family member or someone else, we focus so much on that person who needs care, the person who is sick, the person who, for whatever reason, in this case, needed you around. What we don't focus on, though, is the person who's providing the care. What was that like for you? I mean, because when someone needs you that much, there are obviously, I'm sure you're grateful to be able to provide the support, but there is a toll that takes on the person who's providing care. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. And it's funny in a way, not funny of the loss, but funny that it's part of what propels me to do what I do. There's kind of like an end goal out there about creating a foundation in honor of my mom and my grandmother. But it's for the caregiver, because going through this twice, there was never any support for what I was doing. There's support for the patient. There's support for, all different types of illnesses, but there's never really support for the person going through it. And obviously I'm not trained in that, right? I'm not a nurse or CNA. So I had to learn things on the spot. And my mom's illness was prolonged. Her cancer went into remission, and then it came back, and it was fast and furious. And it took a huge physical toll on me. It's my mom. She was my best friend. I would never have not done this. I don't ever regret the time I spent with her. I only wish that the outcome had been different. But my body, I gained so much weight because she wasn't eating, so I was eating for her. I obviously wasn't exercising or doing anything. I was managing a few different retail stores over that period of time that she was ill. I had a wonderful staff that was very understanding and flexible with me. But that was it. I would go there and take care of her. Go there, take care of her. I mean, that was my life. There was nothing else going on. And I definitely lost myself in all of that, because in the end, after she passed, I looked at myself. I didn't recognize myself. I was miserable. I didn't like the job I had. And I didn't really know where to go next, because I just lost my best friend. So it was really, it was dark, really dark. And when that situation came up the second time with my grandmother, I vowed to do it differently. And that's really when my health and wellness kicked in to full force. Like, I've always been an athlete. I've always enjoyed exercising and eating healthy. But when she was sick, I did gain a lot of weight, and I promised myself I wouldn't go through that again. And oddly, this time around, when my grandmother got sick, I did the opposite. I went hardcore into working out, because that was my only time for myself. And oddly, it was just 30 minutes a day, but it was every single day. I had to have 30 minutes between school, the hospital, and taking care of her. And it set me to, I guess, create the pattern and the habit that I have now. But yeah, it was rough. I don't wish that on anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny, because I'm not in a situation where I'm taking care of someone to that degree, but I am a mom to two very young kids. So 3.5 and 10 months as of right now. So lots of needs, right? When they're that young, they need you for a lot of things. And I can completely relate to the experience you had with your mom around feeling like you completely lost yourself. Because, and people who have been in a parenting role or a caretaking role can probably understand that, because lots of times, to make room for the time that you need to put in for that other person, you do have to sacrifice pieces of yourself. And I'd love to be able to sit here and say, you can do everything and do it all at the same time, but you just can't.
No.
It just isn't possible.
No. And there's this, I think, overwhelming feeling of like, you must be selfish if you're doing something for yourself. But what I've really learned, and this is something that I preach a lot at this point, is self-care and self-love is not selfish. It's actually the opposite. And it was something that took me a very long time to learn. And I understand what a new mom is going through in that respect. And she's overwhelmed. And I'd probably say until the child is 9 months, you probably don't have that luxury to give yourself that 30 minutes. But from that point on, you have to be a better parent, to be a better partner. You want to work up to an hour, but you need that 30 minutes. Like, it makes a world of difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm curious about, another piece of this. So the working out piece is absolutely critical. Like, I find when I'm at the peak of feeling like I don't have time to work out, that is absolutely when I need to work out. And what's funny is I've gotten to the point where I just force myself to do it and burn that time in the gym. And it's kind of funny because everything always still gets done. Like you find a way, you just have to make the move to go spend the time and decide that that's something that you're going to do. But I'm in a much better headspace when I do that.
Totally. And that goes also like to time blocking. You have to set the time that you're going to go. It needs to be in your calendar. So you have that additional reminder. It's so funny. There's a group right now. We have an accountability group, and it's a 30-30. And it's just, again, it was like 30 minutes a day for 30 days. And at first we were just kind of all laughing because we do it anyway. But when you have to check in and tell them what you did, you're like, oh, hang on. And it doesn't always have to be the gym. I like people to think this too. That first series of me getting my health back, this is going to date me, but it was an Xbox that I had at home, and I bought a couple of DVDs, and one of them was The Biggest Loser, and I had some hand weights. So literally that is what I did for 30 minutes every day at 5:30 in the morning, every morning, because again, I had to go to school and then the hospital, and it was just a 24-hour loop that I was in. But that 30 minutes, it changed my life.
Yeah.
It really did. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I wanted to mention too is it can be easy and understandable, I'll say, to end up immersing yourself in that caregiver role. I can understand how it happens to people. I get it. Once you kind of come out of the woods though, and so I'm at that 10-month mark where, not everybody's kid is the same, but this kid is sleeping extremely regularly now.
Yay!
And like the world has some sense and cadence to it again. What I'm intentionally doing, and this was my last baby, so we aren't planning on having any more kids. So I'm legitimately and intentionally thinking back to myself before I had kids. And I don't think I'm the same person as I was then, but I do think some of the stuff that woman was up to was pretty cool. And I might want to do some of that stuff again. So
Absolutely.
I'm literally like exploring some of these things that I had done before that I couldn't physically do. Competitive powerlifting. You can't do that when you're pregnant. You cannot physically do that when you're pregnant. But some of those things, I'm starting to explore them again. And the point that I want to make, and I'm curious of your experience, is how did you re-find yourself when you came out of the woods of that situation?
So it was this double, just so many changes all happening at once. Tail end of the school program, the offer to work at the hospital that I turned down, and just having started this home business, I'd been 4 months into it, and taking this huge leap of faith and being like, God, I'm already miserable. I've lost my mom. I've lost my grandmother. I don't want to do this new career that I've just spent 2 years studying for. I have to find something that's going to give me joy every day, because that to me is also a huge component on self-care. It's just, you've got to figure out what brings you joy. And I took this huge leap of faith, and I just was like, okay, in 4 months, I was already able to grow it to a point where I was like, what if I actually invest some time? And so that's where I started that schedule where I dedicate my morning to me. It starts with, I've got meditation, I've got setting intentions. I really keep that very first hour of the day to me. Some people think that's crazy. I found this to be my most stable and successful way of having not only a healthy life, but a healthy business, because I'm better when I take that time for myself in the morning, when I'm not immediately distracted by the phone or by emails. It takes commitment, though. It's really hard not to be pulled in those other directions. But when I can be in my zone, I will have a much more productive day. But you do have to make time for those other things. And I talk to a lot of new moms or moms of toddlers, and they're like, there's just no time. And I'm not saying it's easy, and I don't want anyone to yell at me, but there is a point, you did it before. I understand there's more bodies in front of you now, but you have to give up something. Maybe it's a 30 minutes or an hour of a television show that you watch. Like that's when you need to be on a treadmill, or you need to take them to the gym at your gym where the kids can play, the kids club at the gym, so you can get your time in. You have to figure out something that's going to give you your time back, or that the one where I find helps most people is that earlier hour in the day before the kids get up. Because I know like once they're awake, there's nothing you can do. Like I get that. So you have to figure out how to get that time in before they're awake. And, for me, this was, I had to kind of find my groove and what I liked. I also made some big mistakes along the way. I got too involved in the health and wellness, and I went into an extreme world of diet and fitness where I actually hurt myself. So, there's finding balance with all of this.
Mm-hmm. I love that notion of holding your mornings as totally sacred. I call it my golden hour in the morning. It's funny. I get up at between 5 and 5:30 every single day, Saturdays and Sundays included, 100% of the days. I mean, it's insanely rare if I'm not getting up that early. And the reason why I do it is because I don't ever want to start my day on the offense.
Right.
That means unless something happens, like someone gets sick or has an accident or something, like unless something out of the ordinary happens, no kid is walking in my room, waking me up, and I have to go and parent from the moment my eyes open.
Correct.
That is just not, it's so hard for me. I'm just not a good parent when I do that.
No, I think that's I hear this all the time with the women that I work with. This is so true. And that's why that time is sacred. And that 5 o'clock, that's a rough hour. And you also, and I don't want to like leave this part of it out, you have to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Like your sleep is priority. So if the kids are young or if they wake you up first, then you need to find that time later in the day. And that, I'm sure it's even harder because again, you've got to figure out juggling them and where you're going to put them. But you have to figure out that compromise. But if you're not sleeping, forget everything else. Like your health and wellness journey is screwed if you're not getting the sleep in. And as you get older, and the stuff that I've been going through these past few years, and having sleep being a very difficult task to handle because of hormones and cortisol and all these fun things that you get to experience. Sleep is precious. And man, if you're not getting it, it's like you're walking around hungover. Mm-hmm. And
anybody
no
with a new baby knows, like that is
exactly.
Just, you can't operate at your peak. And what I've found too, like I said, I'm getting up between 5 and 5:30. I go to bed shortly after my kids go to bed. Like my kids go to bed, I take a little bit of time and really I'm going to bed. Hi friends, I have a very important announcement. If you caught episode 124, you know all about what I'm about to tell you. But if you haven't, I want to make sure that you are in the know. As of August 1st, the Women Inspired podcast will become the Building Psychological Strength podcast. This pivot will focus the content of the show around the concepts of psychological strength and intentional life design, the two topics I get asked about more than anything else. I'm simultaneously beyond excited, but also a little bit sad. I'm sad because I'm transitioning out of a brand that has become such a big part of my life, but I'm beyond excited to transition fully in a direction that'll serve you at an even higher level. And that's the whole reason why I'm here in the first place. So, a few things will change. You'll notice new cover art, a new title, and a slightly different feel to the podcast going forward. The content of the podcast will focus more specifically on aspects of psychological strength and ways to apply life design to your own lives. Again, the two topics that I hear from you about most often. But other things won't change. I'll still be here. Each and every week, I'll still have the same dedication to bringing you guests, information, techniques, and tools to help you thrive in your life. And I hope you'll continue to join me each week. You don't have to do anything on your end. The change will automatically happen on August 1st, but I wanted to let you know ahead of time because I truly consider each and every one of you a dear friend. If you'd like more information about the transition, please catch episode 124. And thank you so much for being with me on this journey. The other thing in the morning, and I'm curious if you do this as well, 0 email until I've done my own thing. And my own thing means planning out my day, figuring out what the 3 things I'm going to focus on are. I do a gratitude practice every morning. Other people do pages or meditation or something like that. I do a gratitude practice every morning. I set myself up with an intention for how my day is going to go and also write down how I want my day to feel. And then I do a little bit of journaling around every single time. It starts with the same sentence. Today is going to be a great day. I write that sentence every single morning until I have done all of those things. No email gets checked. None. Because you don't know what's in that cesspool, right? Like anything can be in there.
And that's what derails you. And that's what then, like you said, then you are on the defensive. Like you are no longer in control of your day. I think we must have learned from some of the same people. I too set like those 3 projects, those tasks that have to get completed that day, how I want my day to look, when I prefer it to end. And I time block. I mean, I really do spread it out so I know that I'm getting the most productive time in and when my energy is the best, because it's not always the best time for me to be talking to someone. Like I need to use that time for something else. So yeah, I do map it out and it's imperative. It definitely derails you when you let those emails or phone calls, if that's what's starting your day, the same way if your kids are waking you up, same exact feeling. You are on the defensive and you are not going to have the same successful day that you could have. Yeah.
Did I say you don't want to start on offense? I'm not sure. I'm not a sportsy person, but what I mean is you should start your day on your own terms. So if you rewind this episode and I said it the wrong way before, oopsies, not a sportsy person in that way. But regardless, you get what I'm saying. You don't want your kids busting in, waking you up, and that being the first thing that you have to do in the morning. That is just god-awful.
Because it's like you lose all of your power. You are completely then... you were then like beholden to whatever's happening for them, right? And so you have lost your power, which is not good for anyone. So yeah, you gotta keep that clear. Plus, then guess what? You're gonna be so much more of a lighthearted, supportive, enthusiastic parent when you have gotten that quality time for yourself. And also, I'm sure it spills over to your personal relationships as well. I'm sure your spouse will be much happier too because you're not cranky. You know, you got everything you needed. So yeah, it's a balance and it takes practice. It does take practice.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to make sure before, since I have you here and you have such an amazing background and expertise, you actually have your own podcast. I believe it's called The Confidence Crown.
Correct.
You have such a deep expertise in confidence and building confidence and maintaining it when things get adverse. Talk to me a little bit about where that work came from and I'm going to dive into, how do we do this for ourselves? I'm going to dig in there. So talk to me a little bit about that work.
I love it. The Confidence Crown came out of many different levels of work that I've done over the years, but really there was this common denominator with a lot of the women that I work with as I help them build their own home businesses. And I kept seeing this trait. And it was really interesting to me because they can be lawyers or accountants. Like they're educated, they have powerful jobs, they're used to hearing no. Like none of these things in their daily life is new, but when they start their own project and it's, their own shingle, basically, if they hear a no from someone they love or someone close to them or someone just gives them a side-eyed glance, I start to watch them like wilt like a flower. I'm like, what happened to the lawyer I know that gets told no all day long? Like, what's going on here? And I'm just like unraveling an onion and I'm like peeling it back and peeling it back. I'm like, okay, wait, there are some huge limiting beliefs that these women are carrying with them that have come from childhood. They start to look like the kid on the playground that's crying because someone either took the ball or no one's playing with her. And it's this weird thing. And I'm looking at this adult woman who's, again, intelligent, who's vivacious, who is career driven. And yet she has just been crippled by somebody saying no to her. So I'm like, okay, hang on a second. And I had to figure out why that wasn't something that stopped me. So it was kind of like finding like, what is the secret sauce? Because I guess I've always been in careers or workplaces where no is just an all-day thing. Like, it's just not a new thing for me to hear. It's just part of the game. And I try to like compare it. I'm like, well, if you had a bricks and mortar store and a customer came in and decided they didn't want to purchase something because it just wasn't the right time for them, and they left the store, would you start crying? Would you close your doors? No, you would be open the next day and you'd talk to the next person and you'd hope to find a match for them, right? It's just about other people's, it's timing. It's just not always the right time for people. So again, this kind of just spilled over, and I guess I was trying to, again, pinpoint like the one thing that makes this work for me and it's hurting others. And so the podcast is me telling my life story. Basically, the first season, I just spilled all. I was like, okay, hang. I've gone through this loss. I've gone through this failure. But I keep picking myself up and dusting myself up, and I keep going. And I'm really passionate about helping other women do the same thing. And so I want to help you find that power in you. And then the podcast spilled over into a book. I wrote my first book, and it's a guide to building confidence because I want people to have those steps. Then they can it's a workbook, and they can really they can write in it, and they can actually follow a pattern every day and hopefully overcome those limiting beliefs and really start to hone in on what they're proud of about themselves, because that seems to be a turning point when they see oh, I'm really good at this. Oh, I can do this. Oh, that no is just a not right now. It's just getting over that hump and really figuring out what the heck is stopping them. So, yeah,
absolutely. Something I spoke with another entrepreneur with recently was that notion of being told no as an entrepreneur. What I think hasn't happened yet, and I'm curious if you've noticed this with people that you've worked with, when somebody crumbles at a no in their business, what I think they haven't done yet, but is something that is critical for people who want to be successful in their own business, is you need to, even if you're in a service-based business, one that you provide the service. When someone says no, they're saying no to the product. They're not saying no to you, which means you are not the product. You aren't. And so it doesn't matter. Your value as a person is not determined by your successes or failures, someone else's praise or criticism, none of it. Your value as a person exists because you're here. It's
Absolutely.
That's irrefutable. It's and just simply no, I don't. Are you thirsty? Do you want a glass of water? No, I'm not thirsty. That doesn't have anything to do with me. It just means that you don't want some water.
And honestly, those no's are just not right now. It really relates to that, because I've had people, I've been doing this for 8 years. They said no to me however many times over the 8 years. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, I'm ready. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm glad you see it now. I'm glad you get it. But I use this silly metaphor that I think is really helpful for people. And usually kind of breaks the ice when someone's really having trouble with this. I said, if you were a waitress, because I've waited tables before. I'm like, if you were a waitress, or just think about the waitress you saw last. She asked you if you wanted hors d'oeuvre. She asked if you wanted a drink and hors d'oeuvre. Then she asked you what you wanted for your main entree. Then she came back and she asked if you wanted dessert and coffee. If you said no to dessert and coffee, or whatever else in that speech that she gave, do you think she went in the back and started crying? Mm-hmm. No.
Right.
But she's going to ask every single customer she has if they want those things, because somebody's going to want them all, and somebody's just going to want a few of them, and somebody's not going to want it right now. That's it. I mean, it's really that basic. It has nothing to do with the person. Like you said, it's just the product is not what they're interested in at that moment, period. But to see them crumble, it hurts me. I'm a very empathetic person. So it hurts me. I'm like, oh my God, come on, guys. It's not you. It's them. It's okay.
Yeah.
But it's also really exciting to see them get over that and realize that they do have the confidence to move forward and to really showcase what they are proud of about themselves. And that seems to be the tipping point.
Absolutely. So you have this, this background in health and wellness. We've talked a lot about self-care. We've talked a lot about being intentional about your day and especially your morning. We've talked about confidence. These to me, and we had a little bit of a chat before we recorded and we talked about this a bit. The more I think about these practices, the more I think about them in the context of someone like an Olympic athlete, someone like Michael Phelps, who wants to go to the pool and he wants to swim the best that he can possibly swim. His goal, he's retired now, but at the time, his goal was to go and do the best job that he possibly could. And to set himself up for success, he made sure that he took care of himself and that he did the right, both outer and inner work to take care of himself and set himself up for success. And if Michael Phelps ate like garbage for the week before a competition, slept like garbage the week before a competition, drank like crazy and whatever, he would not expect himself to do well. He would expect himself to do pretty badly. And when that happened, he would just understand where that came from. And I say all that because I think it puts a lot of what you and I have talked about into context, because we, mere mortals who are not Michael Phelps, we expect so much more of ourselves than even an Olympic athlete would under the worst of circumstances. When we haven't slept, when we haven't eaten well, when we haven't moved our body, when we haven't done the right things in the morning and, gotten enough sleep and all of that, we still expect ourselves to excel and do well in our lives. And it is simply it's not possible.
No,
it just isn't.
And the other thing that Olympic athlete does that we forget to do is they visualize themselves winning the race, and it doesn't matter what the sport is. Part of their training, it's not just doing the weightlifting and eating properly and increasing their speed and making them stronger. Part of their training is visualizing the win. Because you can't win if you don't believe you will. And that's a huge part of this too with the confidence. If you don't believe in yourself, if you're like hemming and hawing when you're trying to show someone or tell someone about a product, if you don't sound like you love it, why would someone want to buy it from you? So if you're not coming from an authentic, genuine, sharing way, it offset. People are like, yeah, thanks, no. They probably run from you because you're not sharing it in a way that is successful. And it doesn't mean you're a salesperson because that's not a good thing either. But you want to be a share person and you want to see that you're bringing a service or an item to that person that's going to help them improve whatever it is they want to improve. Trying to stay all generic here in this world. But, it's like you have this gift and you want to share it with them because you know that they're going to benefit from this gift. But you have to see that happen. You have to visualize that. You can't be like, I don't know if I can make that phone call. And I don't know, they might hang up and they might tell me it. So they say no. That's the worst thing that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. You're going to be okay. But before you get on that phone call, tell yourself you're going to have a great call. Like you said, you're going to have a great day. You're going to have a great call. You're going to bring them a service that they want. You're going to make sure that that person on the other end of the phone is getting what they need in their life, what's in it for them. And that's a huge component of how all of this plays into your own self-esteem. But you got to believe it first.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So if you have people who are listening to this who aren't taking care of themselves in the way that they should, or maybe struggle with confidence, what are maybe the top 3 things that you would say to somebody in order for them to come out into life as their biggest, boldest self? Like, what are the top 3 things that either have worked for you or you've seen work for other people? 3 things we need to keep in mind as we move forward.
All right. The most important, I mean, really, and that list can be a lot longer, but let's just get down to brass tacks here. Sleep, hydration, and 30 minutes of movement a day. If you can do those 3 things consistently, you can add all the other elements that you need to be successful in your life. But without the sleep, without being properly hydrated, and without moving your body 30 minutes a day, you aren't running your best self. And think of it like a car. You got to, give it the right gas, the right oil. You got to maintain it. You got to feed your body. The whole personal development step would have been step 4. You got to dig in. You got to work on yourself, find, overcome those limiting beliefs, find out, what it is you want to pursue, what's your joy. But if you don't have sleep and you don't drink a lot of water and you don't move, you're going to be stuck. It's going to be hard to do those other things.
I love that. It's so basic and it's so foundational, but it's foundational for a reason, right? Like they're incredibly critical things that if they're not in place, it's really difficult to stack anything else up. And what I will say is to the parents out there, to the people who are chasing little ones around, like I said, my particular, this single 10-month-old, the one that I happen to have, she's sleeping right now. But I want to say to the people who are listening to this, she's not sleeping right at the moment, but she is sleeping extremely well these days. For the people whose kids are not, I totally get it. And I get you. And what I'll say is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring up the Michael Phelps thing is that if Michael Phelps had a brand new baby, and they are crazy. They are lucky they're cute because they are crazy in those early days. I'm not that far out of them. I get it. But what I wanted to say is if you are in a season of life where it is extremely difficult, if not impossible, but we'll say just difficult for you to get the sleep that you need, I want you to understand that you're just not going to be at your best. And stop beating yourself up about it. Because if Michael Phelps slept like garbage, ate like garbage, and drank his butt off, he would not expect himself to swim as fast as he could as if he was at his peak. So just be a little bit kind to yourself and cut yourself some slack and realize that you are just, an advanced animal who needs to eat, sleep, drink water, and move their body. Yeah. Like you are no different than, other animals who need the same things in order to thrive and do well.
Absolutely.
And I wish I would have told you could do 4 because I totally agree on self-awareness and getting to know yourself and figuring out what it is that's holding you back and limiting you. Oh my God, that is like half the reason why I do half the work that I do. So I should have given you 4.
That's okay. It was hard because again, that meditation, setting intentions and really putting your dream, whatever that focus is that you want to do, you have to, but if you don't have those other 3, you're just going to be kind of spinning in a circle because you won't have the foundation you need to further yourself. Again, shout out to all new moms and those with young kids. I empathize 100%, and it's not going to be perfect and it's not going to be easy. But do love on yourself, do give yourself a break, but start one thing. Get that water in, move them, put them in a stroller and go move for 30 minutes. Do whatever it is you can in those steps, but obviously sleep, that's the top one. Yeah. Gotta get it. Get it.
Oh, this has been so awesome. Thank you so much for being here. It was just, it's amazing to chat with somebody who has such a multifaceted background like you, who really works in the trenches of some of these areas that are so critical, like mission critical to us thriving and living a great life. And so it's just been fun to have you here and fun to chat through some of these foundational topics that really support people's success. So thanks so much, Lisa, for being here.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It was great.
All right, you guys, that was the amazing Lisa Hyde. And if you want to learn more about her or about the work that she's doing, you can visit www.theconfidencecrown.com, or you can find her on Instagram and follow her at @theconfidencecrown. All right, as usual, I have a few things that I want to talk about because there was a lot in this conversation, and so I want to peel back a few layers for you. Number one, this is how I started this episode, with this notion of taking care of other people and how immersive that experience can be. I'm just at the point, I mentioned it in the episode, that my youngest child is 10 months old. I'm kind of coming out of the stage where you are completely immersed every moment of the day in taking care of someone who absolutely needs you that much, and people who have been in a position where a friend or a spouse or a family member or a parent or someone else that you love needed you so much and needed you to be there. Now, there can be a lot of complex emotions that come from this. And believe me, I've been through all of that complexity in my own life. I understand how it feels to simultaneously be so grateful that you can be there for someone, and be so grateful that you have that capacity. Also be so grateful that they trusted you enough to come to you for that support. I can understand absolutely feeling like that while simultaneously desperately needing a break. Those two things can simultaneously coexist, and there's nothing wrong with you if that's how you're feeling. I can think of so many times when my husband has been working really difficult, brutally difficult shifts in the ER. And it's brutally difficult both for him and, when our kids were extremely young, for the family too, because it meant that I was with them nonstop. And I'm going to give you a little analogy. I love analogies. So again, if you're new to the podcast, I adore analogies. I'm going to give you an analogy that is outside the context of what we're talking about, but I think drives home the point beautifully. Imagine you went to the gym and you got a trainer, right? You're going to work with a trainer and they're going to help you get fit. And that trainer said, okay, great. I want you to drop to the ground and I want you to start doing push-ups. Just start doing push-ups. So you drop down, you start doing push-ups. After maybe, 5 to 10 of them, you're like, okay, cool. And they said, nope, no. Keep doing push-ups. Just keep going. Keep doing this same movement over and over and over again. It wouldn't be very long before you would burn out. Now, imagine that same experience if you got to the gym and your trainer said, okay, drop to the ground, give me some push-ups. And you give them, 5 to 10, and you look up and you say, okay, cool, what's next? And they say, great, get into that squat rack. We're going to do squats now. Okay, cool. Now you did squats. Great. We're going to do some abs. Come over here and we're going to get on this balance ball and we're going to do some abs. You might be working the same amount of time under both of those trainers, the crazy push-up person and the person who's letting you do all kinds of different exercises. For me, when I would spend non-stop time, no breaks, brutally long with my kids, I adore them. I love those two little girls more than I can even describe. But when I would spend nonstop time with them, it felt like I was doing push-ups, like just push-up after push-up. And even though I was getting fatigued from push-ups, I could get under that squat rack right now. Sure, I could do something else that's work, but I've been doing this same type of work for a really long time. That's when I say I understand what it means to be so grateful to be there, but to also need a break from that particular effort. I get it. So I just wanted to let you know, I understand that. And I also, being in that position, I understand the absolute critical need to take care of yourself, even if it's just for a few minutes a day, 30 minutes, as Lisa was saying. Just a few minutes a day, if you can find something for yourself, it sets you up so much better. I see it happening in my own day-to-day within my family. I'm a better person when I have just a few minutes a day. Also, that notion of finding yourself, when you start to come out of that hole, because life won't always be like that. For one way or the other, You won't always be in that position. And I also recognize that there might be some devastation that comes with that. If you're caring for someone who's sick and there's a chance that they may pass away, I understand that there may be some devastation that comes from that. But regardless, when you are on the other side, at some point when you feel ready, please re-explore who you really are inside, because you do give up pieces of yourself to care for someone else. And those pieces that you give up temporarily, they're still there, and they're still so important, and they're important to your life's journey. And I firmly believe that those people we take care of, they want us to be happy. I believe that my kids want me to be happy. I believe that Lisa's mom and grandma wanted her to be happy, even after they passed away. So once you're out of the woods, once you're out of that position where you're taking care of someone so exclusively, take a moment, be intentional about it, and find that person who's inside of you again, that whole person, and start to reconnect with them as it makes sense and as it feels good. Second thing I want to hit is this notion of the golden hour, the first hour or two of your day. My life changed when I started getting up earlier. It is miraculous. I won't give that hour up for anything. It is the most wonderful hour of my day because I can start my day slowly. I don't have to immediately turn on and start rushing. I can start my day slowly. I literally get out. I use a journal called the Self Journal. It's from bestself.co, I believe is the website. I use a journal called the Self Journal. It is built in. A gratitude practice is built in. Intention setting is built in. Planning for your day and your tasks are built in. Taking notes is built in. Gratitude practice at night, celebrating your wins, recapturing lessons you learned, it's all built in. I'm not an affiliate of theirs. I don't make a dime for any journals that are sold from this podcast. They are not a sponsor. I'm just such an advocate of that journal because I've seen what it's done for me. Getting up early and spending even 15 minutes with that journal and spending 15 minutes writing down. And the things I'm writing down, by the way, the things that I'm writing down are things that I want to cue my mind to remember. So lots of days I write down, I'm the best wife and mom that I know. Is that objectively true? I don't know, probably not. But what I'm doing is I'm telling my mind, today, I want you to look for ways to be a really great wife and mom. Something else that I write down is I write down, I really appreciate and am grateful for the white space in my day. Meaning, I'm the best wife and mom that I know, meaning I want you to look for ways that I can be good for those other people, but I want you to look for ways where I can take a moment for myself as well. So things that you want to signal your mind to do, write those things down in the morning. But that golden hour, setting yourself up for success during the day, I know there's a lot of people on the internet preaching this. They're doing it for a reason. Trust me, I dare you. I double dog dare you. Go try this for a month. Just do it for a month. These types of things are the exact things that we're doing within Peak Mind, the Center for Psychological Strength. And I know, folks have heard me talk about this a little bit. I couldn't as passionately tell you about this if I didn't know how impactful and how meaningful these exercises are. If I didn't see it happening with other people who we're working with, it is amazing. So do something so simple as taking that time to set your intention for the day and set yourself up for success. Get up a little bit earlier and do that. Just do it for a little while and watch your life change. It absolutely will. Last thing I'm going to plug is episode 46. I interviewed a woman named Erin Falconer. She wrote a book called How to Get Shit Done. And essentially what the book boils down to is figuring out what your values are, figuring out what you care about, spending your time on that stuff and not doing the other things. The way to be able to take care of yourself when you're caring for someone else or when your schedule is really crazy or when things are really busy is to start saying no to the things you're able to say no to that don't align to your values and don't align to who you want to be in this life. It can be difficult. I do it on a daily basis. It is not easy. But if you want to be able to spend the time, the most non-renewable resource on this planet, If you want to be able to spend that on things that matter to you, this is the way to do it. So check out episode 46 if you're at all curious about that. Erin Falconer, she is just a lovely human being, just a wonderful human being. And check out her book too. It was just transformational for me. I just loved it. All right, you guys, thank you so much, truly, for being here. Thank you for joining me every single week. And watch out for Mondays, P.S. I've started releasing Monday episodes every once in a while where I'm teaching and talking about topics within psychology and life design, things that are just more practical. Occasionally, I'll release a download that is absolutely free that will accompany the episode. And really, it's meant to give you something actionable that'll help change your life. So check out those episodes. I want to hear from you guys if they're helpful. I would love to hear from you guys what you're learning from them and how you're putting it into practice. And yeah, let me know. Reach out if there's something you want me to cover as well. Thank you guys so much for being here this week, and I will be back next week with another amazing interview. Until then, please go live your biggest, boldest, aligned, most vibrant life. Before we close out today, I want to say thank you to my producer, Cameron Hill, and to my incredible sponsor, Modern Well. If you want to learn more about how you can reach your goals in a one-of-a-kind work-life community, visit www.modernwell.co. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone else who might benefit from this inspiring message. And if you have a moment, click the link in the episode description to leave me a rating and a review on iTunes. It would mean so much to me. Finally, I want to remind you that it is absolutely possible to live a happy, fulfilling life, even in spite of all of the chaos and demands we all experience. Sign up at aprilseifert.com to gain access to tools that will help you do just that. I have carefully created and curated a set of tools that combine the powerful fields of psychology and design thinking to help you intentionally create a fulfilling, happy life you love. Thank you so much for joining me this week, and until next week, stay inspired.